there, Starshines. Tangent Spinner here, spinner of tangents and rants of random. I'm back with the Let's Read. I know I promised it the other night. In all honesty, I got over distracted. I went grocery shopping. I made steak. What? No, your bed's over that way. Sorry, Merlin was looking for his bed to chew on. Oh wait, no, here it is. There you go. I got distracted. We had a storm, there was a bit of a power outage, and then the power came back on, and then I realized that I hadn't had my phone charger plugged in all the way, which means that it was pretty much dead, and my phone just isn't charging the way it should be. So like right now I think it's at like 40%, so this will be a kind of quick little video. But update on the fish. Pastrami died. Oops. Pop-Tart's still alive. Sharkbait 2 is still alive. Moved them down to the 5-gallon. They're swimming along strong and happy. Check them again tomorrow. What? Oh, how dare you, grr. Check them again tomorrow. If they're both still alive tomorrow, we should be good to go for Tuesday, which is when I'm going to take pastrami. I'm not replacing pastrami. I'm just sticking with the 2 I have, like I promised. This is that. If one or both of these guys die, I'm going to leave the tank running. I'm going to switch the water out, of course. Leave the tank running for a few days. Check the water again. Leave it like that for a couple weeks, check the water again, get fish then, but otherwise, no. Anyways. Alright, where we left off, Lachesis had introduced Ravirn to his future if he does not stay in place at the school and get a 4.0 grade average and pass his midterms exams, whatever they are. And it was a Gregorian computer monastery. They were literally going around, they were like 1100110110110001 and running around like that. So that was interesting. But she put a curse on Melchior so that it was limited access to the MWeb and everything like that, and where we left them off, he's trying to figure out how the fuck they're going to survive. So that's where we left off. Let's get on to part 2, shall we? I spent the next day apologizing to my various professors and begging them to let me take the makeup exams. 2 of my professors agreed to my request, but only if I took their tests on the spot. A third handed me a really ugly take-home exam with a 1-week deadline. The 4th gave me an extension on the paper I owed her, but demanded I have it into her office by the time she arrived the next morning. She was an early riser, so I finished the paper that night and slid it under her door around 4:40 in the morning. Afterward, I fell exhausted into my bed without having done a thing about Atropos. But in direct contradiction to Melchior's dire prediction, the next week went by without a single attempt on my life. So did the following one. I even got caught up on my homework. I only had one significant problem. I couldn't get in touch with Cerise. The spell my grandmother had put on Melchior to prevent me from hacking via the MWeb also kept me from sending email between the worlds. As days sped past with no contact, I imagined her getting madder and madder, and I felt like a complete rat. There had to be something I could do. The question was what? I was worrying at the problem as I walked to my differential equations of class. Echo, let go of your brother's fucking face, you dumb fuck! I can hear him squealing in here. Stop it. Echo, my cat's bullying my dog. Okay, now the dog's chewing on the cat. It's fine. Sorry, I'm sorry for yelling, guys. My differential equations class in my 3rd week back. An early blizzard had arrived the night before and was still going full force. Visibility was terrible, and the mall was almost empty. I was just passing the pillars of Ford Hall on my way to Vincent when something caused me to look up. I found myself eye to eye with a hideously distorted face. It was perhaps 15 feet away and closing fast. Loose folds of dead gray skin almost buried its eyes. Beneath was a broad, flat nose and a huge, round mouth. While my brain was trying to make sense of this, my reflexes kicked in. Slapping a palm against the nearest pillar, I pushed as hard as I could. Since the building wasn't going anywhere, I ended up throwing myself backwards just as the heavy stone gargoyle dropped into the space I had so recently occupied. It brushed against the tips of my outthrust fingers, tearing skin and numbing my hand and half my forearm. It also spun me halfway around. Still spinning, I curled my body into a tight ball and tried to turn the fall into a controlled tumble. But my book bag got in the way, and I ended up landing hard on my back as the bits of stone that were all that remained of the gargoyle rained down around me. If it hadn't been for the snow, I might have broken my tailbone. It felt like hours before I was able to roll over and get to my feet. But it couldn't have been more than a few seconds, because the gawkers that always seemed to magically appear around the site of any accident hadn't yet arrived. That suited me fine. I was already on academic probation as a result of the broken windows in my room and missed my class time. In addition, I'd had a number of long discussions with the campus cops and the dean of students on the subject of how the front hall and the Wiseman got trashed. They would have expelled me if Ravi Latcher's grandmother hadn't been a major donor, or if they'd had even a shred of proof. I suspected that having further destruction of university property linked to my name, even if I was clearly the victim in this case, might be enough to prematurely end my academic year and send me to St. Turing's. That's the name of the monastery, the 1001 monastery. Okay. I hurried on to Vincent, where I sat through the whole lecture and even took notes, but I have no memory of what was taught, and it wasn't until the students for the next hour started to file in that I realized class was over. Then I got up and walked dazedly back to my room on the Comstock and crawled into bed. An hour later, memory brought me awake in a cold sweat. Ford Hall doesn't have gargoyles. I got an email from Cerise the next morning. She was wondering why I hadn't got in touch. She was very not happy with me. I didn't blame her, and I told her so in my response. The problem came when I ordered Melchior to send it. Error, he replied. Cross-locus SMTP server not available. Tried to send. Local processor responded user Ravirn 001, access denied. For more information, see sent messages log. I can't even reply to someone else's cross-locus message? Lachesis couldn't have intended that. It means I won't be able to respond to her either. Sorry, boss, said Melchior, but all outgoing messages get routed the same way regardless of whether they're totally new or replies. You should know that. I do. I guess I just haven't thought it through. Chaos and discord. How am I going to let Cerise know what's up? My life was getting more joyful by the minute. She'll think I'm deliberately dodging her, when the actual problem is that the fates are quite literally conspiring against me. I stood up and began to pace. I wasn't entirely sure where Cerise and I might be going, or even where I wanted us to go, but I knew that if she thought I was blowing her off, it'd be a mighty short trip. It was yet another problem to add to my ever-growing list. I wanted to scream. I decided to take a walk instead. Maybe I could think of something along the way. Melchior, laptop, execute. He folded and compressed until he was back in computer mode, and I scooped him into my bag. There had to be something I could do about Cerise and my other troubles, but what? I meandered past Kaufman Union and out onto the mall. It was cold and dark, a perfect accompaniment to my mood, and the icy wind was flat and lifeless, with only exhaust fumes and the occasional bit of side-stream cigarette smoke to flavor it. The temperature had frozen all the moisture out of the air, leaving it too dry to carry subtler smells. It wasn't until I made the long climb up the stairs in the dorm that I thought of something. I avoided the elevators because someone might have some clever ideas about cables and metal cutters. The plan occurred to me as I passed the 4th floor. That gave me plenty of time to think on my way to 20. It seemed like a bad idea and possibly ineffective then, it seemed like a bad idea and possibly ineffective then, and it wasn't any better when I reached my room, but it was the only idea I had. Time check. Okay. This is crazy, said Melchior, his voice dipping with disapproval as he peered at me over the open top of my shoulder bag. Tell me something I don't know, I replied before I dropped the last couple of feet, landing lightly on the dead, snow-dusted grass. We were on a tiny island in the Mississippi. Oval, and perhaps 15 feet by 25, It was mostly filled by the support pier of an aging railroad bridge. Even with the previous day's blizzard, the sheltering bulk of the stone pier and the deck of the bridge overhead kept the island largely free of drifts. Darkness and gently falling snow provided a curtain that hid the city around us from view. Cold, black water rushed by on both sides, gurgling and sighing to itself, muffling the sounds of the urban landscape. Completely isolated, the island was ideal for my purposes. "You could wait until she comes to you," said Mel. He had his little hands stuffed in his armpits to keep warm. "If she comes to me, Mel, not when, and that's a big if. You read the email. Cerise is mad already, and no doubt getting madder with every passing hour that I... Sorry guys, it cut out. Getting madder with every passing hour that I don't respond. Responsibility is not a word that has been associated with my name on a very regular basis." "You can say that again," Melchior affirmed. If everyone agrees I'm irresponsible, even my familiar, especially your familiar." I shot him a nasty look, but it slid off like water off hot Teflon. "Okay," said Melchior, "I see your point, but I still think this is cracked. We're talking pure, raw magic here, not code. It's very chancy stuff." "Objection noted, Mel. But by the time I've got full MWeb access again, it might be too late to explain myself. For that matter, I might not live that long." I started pacing back and forth across the confined space. "Excuse me for asking, but isn't the Cassandra curse going to cause you some problems in the explanation department?" I sighed. It was a good point. Unfortunately, I hadn't yet figured out what to do about it. "I expect it'll make this almost impossible," I said, "but I've still got to try. Look, this is about more than my relationship with Cerise." Melchior raised a skeptical eyebrow at me. "It is," I said, though I wondered if he wasn't right. "She's important to me. Very important, even. But more than that, somebody besides thee and me needs to know what's going on with Atropos." Why would you do that? Why would you put thee in the middle of a sentence where you're speaking complete normal? "Wetware," said Melchior with a sniff. "Can't live with 'em, can't debug 'em. If that's what you want to believe about your motives, nothing I say is going to change it." If I'd had a good response, I'd have made it. Instead, I said, "Oh, shut up and pass me the atham." The web goblin sighed and shook his head, but handed over the slim dagger. With a blade only 5 inches long and less than 1/4 of an inch across, it looked like a letter opener. But no letter opener was ever as sharp as this little knife. Made of magically hardened iron to maximize its affinity for blood, the atham made my father's straight razor look dull. Alright. I'm actually going to stop there. Just because my phone's being a shit, I'm running out of memory again, and yeah, no. So I'm going to stop there. Upload this video. I'm going to upload 2 videos tonight, make up for the last one not being uploaded. Because, actually, hold on, never mind. We have that much left. Might as well finish it. Fuck it. Alright, so Atham made my straight razor look dull. It was so sharp that I felt only the slightest dragging sensation as I ran it lightly across the palm of my left hand. However, bright blood immediately welled up and soon filled my cupped palm. Before it could overflow, I took a length of hemp rope and slowly and methodically worked my hand along its entire length, staining it rusty red. When I was done, I whistled the short spell that closed Atham-inflicted wounds. I spliced the 2 ends of the rope together with a marline spike, making a continuous loop, and placed it in a rough circle on the brown grass. The next step was very scary. It involved playing with the primal chaos again, and I didn't like the idea. My earliest ancestors, the Titans, formed themselves from the stuff using nothing but their own demiurge. I don't know. But the Titan blood runs thin in my veins. It's been diluted over the generations. Still, it was the link formed by that descent that I called upon to open a tiny hole between the ordered frame of my current decision locus and the churning stuff between the worlds. Like the ocean pouring through a break in the wide wall of reality, pure chaos rushed into the gap. But I had judged things carefully, and the way was only open for a microsecond. An enormous, but tightly focused and finite, burst of raw energy poured into the endless loop of my blood-stained rope. It struck about 6 inches from the splice and raced through the circle, crumpling the hemp into a line of charred ash behind it. I held my breath as the chaos charge came around the splice. but it jumped across without hesitating. In a tiny fraction of a second, it had looped back to its entry point, the beginning of the ash trail. Around it went again, this time consuming the ash and leaving a circle of bright green grass in its wake. On the third and final time around the circle, it caused the grass to perform a full... There was a bug in my book. I don't appreciate that. Caused the grass to form a full summer's growth. With that, the chaos dissipated, leaving behind a thigh-high circle of emerald grass. I had built me a fairy ring. Ooh. Don't step in fairy rings. I don't care if it seems fun. Anybody who lives in Ireland or Scotland or anything like that, don't fucking do it. They know better. They don't do that. You don't do that here in America neither. Nope. Just asking for bad shit to happen. Party time, I said to Melchior. He'd hidden on the other side of the stone pier while I worked, but he stuck his head around the corner and peered at the results. Sorry, cut off again. Joy, he said after a moment. Nothing would make me happier than to jump into the wonderful little hole you've created in the order of the universe. Despite his tone, he came to stand beside me. I'm glad to hear it, Mel, because that's just what we're gonna do. My, but this is a bad idea, he said. Have I mentioned that? Many times, Mel. More than I could care to count. Then I'll only do it the once more, and anything that happens after is your fault. I grow tired of insolence, Melchior. It wasn't that so much as the fact that he was probably right that I found annoying, but I couldn't very well admit it. Sorry, my lord and master, but as your familiar, it is my humble duty to advise you about things magical. So, first, this may be an imperfect circle, in which case we could end up anywhere. Second, there may not be an appropriate receiving circle close enough to Cerise, in which we could end up anywhere. Third, even in ideal conditions, these things can misfire, in case we can end up anywhere. I know, Mel, I know. I shrugged, but I'm fresh out of time and ideas. I opened the mouth of the bag for him. As you wish, he said, bowing his head in surrender. As you wish, Princess Bride. Hell yeah. In all honesty, I wasn't much more enthused by the idea than Melchior. I'm a thoroughly modern sorcerer, a code warrior, a programmer. I'm not a classical magician. I hate the old ways. They're painful, inefficient, and hideously dangerous. There's a reason so many sorcerers in old stories meet untimely ends. In the great mystical feeding chain, classical sorcerers fall roughly in the category of hors d'oeuvres. Even using the methods developed by the Fates isn't a guarantee of safety. More than one member of my extended family has been eaten by a glitch when they didn't check their code closely enough. Doing it the old way is just begging to end up on the cosmic lunch tray. Unfortunately, it was the only thing I could think of that might work in the time I had. So, I lifted Mel's bag onto my shoulder and stepped into the circle. Now I'm going to end it. As you guys have probably noticed from the jitteriness of this video, my camera keeps cutting in and out because it's an asshole. But, yeah, no. So he's made a fairy ring. Again, super fucking dangerous. Don't do it. Just like you don't name things, you don't play with Ouija boards, especially where you fucking live. You don't call upon things, you don't go into old shrines or ancient places and try to fuck with the spirits. No, you don't do that shit. But, yeah, no, he made a magical fairy ring, which is kind of like, from the way they describe it and the way I remember, it's like flu travel in Harry Potter, only, like, way more dangerous because you don't say where you're going, you're just supposed to fucking guess. But, yeah, no, so that's end of part 2 right there. I'm going to spin on out before my camera cuts out again because it's a dick. We will see you guys next time for Chapter 7 is next. You guys know how YouTube works. Like, comment, subscribe, backwards, forwards, delete your account. I don't fucking know. But take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time again, like I said. Just remember, guys, you're all my sunshines, okay? Love ya.